Hi everyone. So paper one is nearly here. As I'm recording this, we're about 3 or 4 days out. So I thought I would drop a little bit of last minute advice just to answer some questions that I get a lot when people are getting a little bit anxious. They possibly can't remember everything that they have to remember in terms of structure and so on. So I'm going to take you through that as well as just a few tips for managing these last few days of revision. Okay, so what I would say the night before the exam or the day before the exam are these 5 things. On the day of the exam, these are also very good shouts. So sleep is super important. At this stage, you probably need the sleep more than you need the staying up late revising. If your brain can't function, any revision you've done isn't going to stick. If you are feeling a little bit anxious, gentle exercise, I mean, don't go crazy, but you know, even just going for a walk or a quick run can really help with that. Eat sensibly, eat things that are going to nourish you, don't eat a load of rubbish. Plenty of water, and you can take water into the exam with you as long as it's in a clear bottle. And just give yourself some space, give yourself a little bit of thinking room, detach from people who are stressing you out. Just try and get yourself in the best sort of mental place to do this. Okay, the structure of paper one is pretty straightforward. It is long, you've got 3 hours, but the 3 hours are going to go fast. You're going to write your answers in a booklet. So you'll get a question paper and then separately you'll get an answer booklet. You've got to write in a black pen, take in one you like plus a couple of spares because you never know when it's going to run out. And your timings are the same as what you've practiced. So a 10-mark question, give yourself 18 minutes. A 15-mark question, give yourself 27 minutes. 10s and 15s are the only kinds of question that you will get on paper one. Okay, so those timings will work. The structure is this. So it's philosophy and ethics. You'll get 2 10-mark questions on philosophy, 2 15-mark questions on philosophy, and then the same for ethics, 2 10s and 2 15s. You do not get any choice of question at all on paper one. So every question that is there, you have to do it. Now, you might think, well, what if there's something I can't do? Just have a go. Just try and put down something, okay? In some ways, the no choice thing is good because it makes it nice and straightforward. All right, so when you're in the exam, you're told to start, you open the paper. I would read each question at least twice. I would possibly not even pick up your pen yet. You may have strategies that you do where you underline keywords in the question. That's fine. If you want to do that, that's cool. Remember, you don't have to do the questions in order. You don't have to start with the philosophy. You don't have to do the 10s before the 15s. As long as you make it clear which question you're answering, you can do them in any order. Remember, anything that you cross out won't be marked. So if you start writing an essay and you're like, oh, well, this is not perfect, I want to start it again, think before you cross out, because once it's crossed out, it's not eligible to be marked. It can be really tempting when you're trying to go fast to just kind of get everything out in a big stream of consciousness. Try not to do that. Use paragraphs because that will add a massive amount of clarity to your answers and that will really help the person who's marking it. And obviously keep a close eye on the time. Try and stick to those timings. If you've read, what I mean by those timings is 18 minutes for a 10, 27 minutes for a 15. If you find that you're a little bit out, don't worry. Remember, you need to think, you need to plan, you need to breathe. So factor that in as well. If you've got access arrangements, think about what's worked for you when you've had them before. Think about what worked for you in the mocks. If you've got rest breaks, when's a good time to use them? If you've got extra time, do you need that for writing or do you need it for thinking? Stuff like that. Okay, Let's think about 10 markers then. So the question is always going to start with the word examine. AO1 stands for Assessment Objective 1, and Assessment Objective 1 is knowledge and understanding. So that is what they're testing here. You do not need an introduction or a conclusion on this kind of question. It's not going to add anything. Like I've said, spend around 18 minutes on your answer. So 18 minutes of writing, even if it's not quite 18 full minutes of writing, that will probably end up being fairly chunky. I'm not going to put an exact number of words or number of pages on it because it'll be different for different people. But you want to write for about 18 minutes. If you find that you run out of steam after 10, or if you get to 18 and you feel like you've still got loads more to say, try and rein it in. Try and just think, have I got enough detail or have I maybe got too much? And then answer what is asked, even if you think you know more about the topic. So I'm going to break that down with an example in a minute. This is probably what I see going wrong most with these. People thinking, well, I've revised this topic, I know it really well, and they just write down everything they know about the topic without really engaging with the question. So here's an example to show you what I mean. Imagine that this was one of your philosophy 10 markers. Examine the free will defence and Hicks soul-making theodicy. So examine means explain it in detail with examples. Now you're being asked for two things here. So I think this one could be done in 2 pretty chunky paragraphs. Sometimes you're going to need 3 paragraphs, but they'll be a bit shorter. Sometimes you might need more than that. It really depends on the question. I think the best way to understand this word examine is to think of it as unpacking. So keep asking yourself, what else? What else could I say about the free will defence? What else could I say about Hick? And use examples wherever you can. But keep it relevant to the question. So in this one, for example, you are not being asked about the strengths or the weaknesses of these theodicies. They are literally just asking you, what are they and how do they work? Don't get fixated on length of your essay, because sometimes these end up being slightly different lengths. If they ask you for something super specific, that might end up being a shorter question or a shorter answer that you write than a question that's very broad. 15 markers, these are a little bit different. So it's AO2, and assessment objective 2 is evaluation. So this means that you're having an argument, and to get the top marks, you have to critically analyse different points of view. So we're not unpacking anymore. We're not really doing lots of explanations. We're having the argument we've been asked to have. So again, this is not a time to write down everything you know. Don't over-explain your content. This is one of those times where it's safe to assume that the examiner does know what you're talking about, and that frees you up to have the argument. That's what you're being marked on. And here, I think you definitely do need a conclusion, which is where you justify your overall point of view. So you land on one side of the argument or the other, and you justify that, you say how you've got there. Introductions for these, I don't think they add very much, because unless you're going to use your introduction to signpost your conclusion, which some people do, the danger with an introduction is that you're just going to end up writing out the question in more words, and you don't want to do that. You haven't got time. So here's an example of a 15. The conscience cannot be trusted to give moral guidance. So this is from Year 2 Ethics. The instruction will always be evaluate this claim. So what you're not going to do is just explain the different views of the conscience. So what you don't want to do is, Kohlberg says conscience was like this, and Aquinas said it was like this, and Fletcher said it was like this. That's not the question. That's not what they're asking you. It's, can it be trusted or can it not be trusted? It may be worth spending 60 to 90 seconds just jotting down a super quick plan. Just, what am I going to select for each side of the argument? You are not going to be able to use everything you know about conscience to answer this question. You have to choose. How are you going to critique those points? What strengths and weaknesses can you draw out? What's good? What's bad? What works as an argument? What doesn't? And it's never too early with these to think about, where do you want to end up? What's your conclusion going to be? How are you going to back it up? Okay? Right, we're nearly there. Just a couple more things I would say. When we're in these last few days and you're doing last minute revision, it's almost like tapering before a race if you're a runner. Don't try and do too much. The best things I think you can do are keywords. Go back over any that you've been finding difficult. Just make sure that they're lodged in your long-term memory. Try and get really confident with using them. Remind yourself of the key scholars for each topic. This is less relevant to paper 1, but more so for paper 2. If there are quotes that you need to know, make sure that you're familiar with those. And I have done a video on quotes you need for paper 2, so check that out. And stay away from stressful people. You probably know what I mean by that, but I'm talking about the sort of people who are really getting in your face, either with how much revision they've done or how little revision they've done. People who are going to stress you out are not adding anything to your quality of life at this stage. So just take a step back from them for a day or two. Finally, after the exam, you're going to be tired after this one because it's 3 hours. Try not to do a post-mortem. Try not to stress with other people. Try not to pick apart everything you wrote because you can't change it now. It's fine, it's done. Do something to wind down. That's up to you. Have an evening chilling out, do a little bit of exercise, and then eat and sleep well. Keep looking after yourself because you're not done yet. You've at least got paper 2 RS to go. Some people haven't got anything else now, so you can really get in the zone for paper 2, which would be amazing. But you've had a long slog, so look after yourselves. All right, guys, I hope that's helped. I will be happy to take questions right up until Monday morning, but you've got this. Back yourselves. Remember how hard you've worked and go for it. I'll see you.